Welcome, Sioux Nation, to The Compass, a show where we discuss today's world from a Christian perspective. I'm Caleb Oakes.
And I'm Julia Reed. Today we will be talking about things being taught in public schools that are concerning some parents. Let's get started. Since 2019, there has been a shift in curriculum amongst educators to pushing and promoting woke ideals. This is a challenge to teachers required to teach material that goes against their core beliefs.
According to News Nation, teachers are changing their lessons, limiting or excluding discussions of race and gender amid nationwide backlash against the so-called woke curriculum. These findings come from a report published by RAND Corporation that revealed a nationally representative sample of 8,000 teachers. One quarter said they revised their instructional materials or teaching practices to limit or exclude discussions of race, gender.
For a deeper look into this issue, Caleb talked with a range of educators. Let's see what he learned.
I'm Caleb Oakes reporting here from the Newbie Education Building. Over the years, classrooms have progressively allowed leftist ideologies to seep into their lesson plans. One such concept involves teachers allowing their students more space to figure out their own genders for themselves.
Watching how I use pronouns, I guess, is a big one too, and then making sure you have to be careful saying yes ma'am, yes sir, depending on that kind of things, as well as dealing with the parents as well, because you have to take into aspect that you are talking with them about their student, and you cannot say he or she did this or that. You have to use their name or whatever pronoun they prefer.
Aside from the education system acknowledging these practices in the classroom, there are other controversial theories being taught, such as critical race theory and EID, among others.
You will see this in textbooks. You will also see it in library books that students will check out. I think it depends on the region of the country. In South Carolina, there are actually laws prohibiting the use of some textbooks that adopt these theories. You know, in the School of Education, we talk about a Christian ethic of care. Even though I disagree with some of these philosophies and some of these ideas that are being pushed now, I still can show love to the individuals through a Christian ethic of care, and by talking about the Word of God, then I think we can combat some of the things. I think that it's good that we're in a Christian school because we can let our future teachers know about some of the issues that they will be facing, and also help them in ways that they can model the Christian perspective to their students.
I'm Caleb Oakes from Central South Carolina.
Good information, Caleb. We'll discuss this further with Dr. Michael Hyland and later education student Callie Letcher.
This is what winners are made of. This is what leaders are made of. This is what scholars are made of. This is what believers are made of. This is what warriors are made of.
Welcome back. I'm now joined by Dr. Michael Hyland, who is the Department of Education Coordinator and Associate Professor of Education. How are you today, Dr. Hyland?
Doing well, thank you for having me.
Did you ever teach in public schools?
Yeah, I did for, I was 12 years as a math teacher in secondary schools in St. Louis, and then I was 16 years as a high school principal.
Okay. How did your faith play a role?
You know, it was only in that I lived my actions. You know, there was nothing you teach in a public school per se, but, you know, as a math teacher, it's nice and easy. It's just 2 + 2 or those things. But my faith played a role in how I responded to my students. I remember the only evaluation, I've been in education for 35 years, and the only one I remember, my principal wrote of me in my first year of teaching, lots of people can love the unlovely while they're acting lovely. What sets Dr. Hyland apart, well, it was Mr. Hyland at the time, is that he loves the unlovely while they're acting unlovely. And I believe that was a reflection of my faith.
Yeah. So how do you believe that faith plays a role in the public school system, if at all?
Well, I think it plays a role in the person, you know, in that if I'm a teacher and I'm working with students, or if I'm a principal, even when I was working with students, and many I still keep in touch with, I'm showing them the love the way I can, the love of Christ through how I care for them, accept them, teach them, provide for them in any way I can. So I often met my students outside the classroom doing things to visit them in their sports or whatever and see them in situations.
That's awesome. What are your thoughts on public schools teaching LGBTQ plus ideas that there are more than two genders, or the teaching of critical race theory?
Well, those are tricky. Well, there are three separate elements there.
Yeah.
So that's a tricky construct. Let's start with the first, with all the initials, and I'm not going to try to say them all, because I think we have to be cautious about this. And first of all, when we say teaching of it, there's a difference of teaching it and how we respond to those who are students. Because when I taught, I had students who were, and even back then they had transgender students and under different laws, but and LGBTQ. I accepted them and loved them and shared my faith with them as I could. So that component's there. The teaching of these things is a little trickier in that, one, I don't think it's as expansive as people think in the public schools, but I do think there are situations where teachers are finding themselves at odds with curriculum.
Right.
And that's where it becomes challenging. For me, the real issue is you got to separate out the initials. One is sexual orientation, one is gender. And I think the problem I'm having with the gender component is this is LBG. I don't get to redo, do I? LBG is an orientation, a sinful nature. Okay. TQ now, T, transgender. And when we get into I's and A's, now we're starting to play God. We're trying to say we can be what man and women are. And I think both are, problematic somewhat in our teachings because of how it disagrees with our faith. But in how we respond to the students that are of that persuasions, for lack of a better word, I think this is the same. I treat them like anyone else. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. They look at me and have to recognize all my sinful natures, no lack of those, I'm sure. But, it's the understanding of that, the need to love these students and accept them and not be hateful towards them, lead them into the kingdom that way. In terms of CRT, that's a little bit trickier too, because when I think of the historical roots of it, I'm old. Okay, so it comes out of CT, critical theory, in the 70s. I was a student then, so I'm not teaching. But, we have to look at the historical development of why we've gotten to this point, and how are we recognizing the differences in people. So I do not necessarily agree with all the constructs of the current CRT as it's taught and presented. But I understand the historical development out of it because it comes from, you can go all the way back to Plessy versus Ferguson in the Supreme Court ruling in the 1800s, but it comes out of the 1950s with Brown versus Board of Education, and the need to break down barriers that man had created. So if we look at it in terms of how can we be one as a body, then we have to recognize it that way. But in terms of the critical race constructs that are being taught today, there are some challenges there for people of faith.
Yeah. So I know you touched on this somewhat, but how would you approach situations like this in a public school setting?
I had an advantage in that as a math teacher, that was it. They never came up, per se. It could come up in discussions, and I didn't mind having discussions with my students. I remember when I started the Fellowship of Christian Athletes at my school, it was a predominantly Jewish, one of the schools I had a high Jewish population, and it got a lot of a lot of fight back, but we had conversations about it in class, and people enjoyed it. Flash forward to when I was a principal in the inner city of St. Louis, and I had a transgender student, and working with her, she wanted to go to the boys' bathroom, wanted to do that, and the answer was no. Of course, I was pre-law as they are now. Back then, I could say no. But I still worked with her, and I could call her, and she accepted it because of the way I treated her. And I think we have to look at how we treat people. If we treat people hatefully, they're going to respond hatefully. But if we, light will always shine in the darkness. And so I think in terms of what we're doing, those conversations, I don't mind having them with people. Now, so if as a teacher, I'm willing to present those conversations, but also they're going to hear my perspective on it. I get fired. I don't mind getting fired for sharing who I am.
Yeah. So how would you prepare your education students to handle situations like this when they are in the classroom?
One of my favorite classes I taught in undergraduate, not here, I teach a graduate here, but was diversity and differentiation and understand the differences in people. And one of the first activities they had to do, they were broken into teams and everyone was given a puzzle and they had to put together the puzzle. And that's a class. People are like, wow, that's an interesting class. What's this got to do with education? So they would finish the puzzle, they would have a time limit, and we would try to have them finish it, some didn't, and we would discuss what that's like being a teacher. And one of the components that always comes out of it is, this is what our classroom is like. We have these people who come in all sizes, shapes, differences, colors. And your job as a teacher is to weave them all together into this beautiful picture. Anyone who's missing takes away from that picture. So you have to find a way to bring them in. So we talk about how faith played a role. That was a Christian university I was at the time teaching that course. I would do it in a public university too. How do you get everyone to feel accepted and loved and cared for and have the opportunities to share their perspectives and yet have everyone be open and honest so we weave together into one picture, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your insight and for your time. We'll be back after the break.
What if there's a place for you where your dreams and future collide with God's vision and direction, where thinking and doing go hand in hand with innovation, where servant leaders of the next generation are grown, and where your story can be written and change the course of history, where generosity is contagious and if you catch it, you just might change the world. This is it. Step into community, step into faith, step into life, step into Southern Wesleyan University.
Welcome back. I am now joined by Callie Letcher, who is a physical education major here at SWU. How are you doing today, Callie?
I'm doing good.
That's good. How does your faith play a role in how you will teach in public schools?
I think what the biggest thing for me is to make sure that my students are feeling loved and cared for from my experience in the public schools. That's just the biggest thing, and supporting them too, because I know like PE, it's like the thing where you want to encourage them to be more active in the future just for like living a healthier lifestyle.
Okay. How do you believe faith plays a role in today's public school system, if at all?
Honestly, through the teachers and just the staff that love and support the students all the time. That's just the biggest way to, show faith, because you really, in public schools, you can't like teach about like religion or the Bible like all the way, but you can just love and care for them and support them. That's just the best thing you can do for them.
What are your thoughts on the teaching of LGBTQIA+ ideas in school today?
Honestly, it's pretty much everywhere in the schools, just because, public school, you have a lot of different range of people. I mean, just being there for the students, I know it's not something that as a Christian we totally support and everything, but it's just something where you can just be there and love for them and care for them no matter what, and just show that you are there for them and it's not judgmental or anything like that.
Do you feel like you are being prepared to handle teaching these woke ideas in public schools?
Yes, I do feel like I'm prepared. I think SWU really does a great job of getting us out in the schools and doing a lot of practicums and just a wide variety of range of schools, because like I go to like elementary, middle, and high school. So I get to kind of see a lot of different schools, a lot of different students, and my parents are teachers, so I just have a lot of experience in the school. So.
What are your thoughts about gender roles and sexual ideas being taught as early as 3rd grade?
I mean, I think it's pretty crazy that they're being taught that early, because when I was a kid, I didn't really understand it that young. But I mean, it's just kind of in our culture today, and I think just trying to support them, again, love and care for them. I know that's something that's pretty hard, but I think just being a support and loving and caring for them and making sure, especially in PE, that they are safe and that they're learning and enjoying it. So, yeah.
Okay. How does your faith play a role in your thoughts about everything, all of this?
I mean, I would just say that, like, I just want to promote, like I said earlier, living a healthy lifestyle. So in that way, because some kids are like, don't have any experience at all. So just making it enjoyable and fun for them. Again, like loving and caring for them, supporting them in anything they need throughout school. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for your time, Callie. We'll be right back with more after the break.
Hi,
Hi, I'm Madeline Barrett. I am a Southern Wesleyan graduate, class of 2021. I majored in media communication in a concentration of public relation. I am currently at the reserves at Lake QE here at the sales office. I work with Coldwell Banker Kane. This original position was part-time, and then my supervisor saw my resume and saw all of the things that I've done at Southern Wesleyan, including hosting a number of talk shows, creating an Instagram account for our communications department, and she thought, wow, you just have blown me away with all of these amazing things you've been a part of, and I want to offer you a full-time position here. Southern Wesleyan invested in me, and I got a return on my investment.
We've noticed on the news there have been several instances where teachers have been educating young children on issues regarding sexuality and gender identity. Caleb, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, honestly, I think from a Christian perspective, I think that it's very important that, you know, as our interviewees said, that we're there for the kids, there for them to be the good role models that, you know, we can be, and just love them and give them as fun of a time as we can, while also, you know, upholding the law that we have right now. And obviously we can't cross the line too often. Everybody has their own personal choice. And so if you want to be whatever way you want to be, you can be that way. And we just got to be there for them and love them and show them our light as Christians.
Right, and I think it was what Dr. Hyland said about like showing the child that you love them, and how you treat them is how they'll treat you. And I think it's really important just for teachers and educators nowadays to really just love the kids that they're dealing with, regardless of how they choose to live their lives, and to teach what they know is true, and to just take it from there.
Thank you so much, Julia, for that, and thank you all so much for joining us on this episode of The Compass. Join us next week as we talk about the teen vaping epidemic from a Christian perspective.